If you wanted to talk about goals back in the day, I was your guy. As a teenager, a favorite gift, and please don't laugh, was a new daily planner. I'd spend hours writing out goals to kick off the year. Early in our marriage, a spreadsheet of goals hung on the mirror over my bathroom sink, allowing daily checks of progress. And yes, Susanna likely was rolling her eyes the whole time. Patient goals were central to my career as a physical therapist, but it went further. In spite of zero talent as a speaker, the rehab company I worked for had me travel nationally to regularly speak on the subject, and then the American Physical Therapy Association asked me to write a column that turned out continuing for 20 years that often integrated this same concept. The launch of Catalyst Coaching in 2007 took this to another level. Goals were essentially my strategy, my identity, and my livelihood. But ask me today about goals? No thanks. I'm no longer a fan, and I rarely, if ever, utilize them. Now, that might be incredibly surprising to hear from a guy who lives his life in the health and wellness and performance world. But there's a far better option available, and that's where we're going to focus our time together in this episode of the Coaching Lab podcast, creating a clear, personal vision. And yes, sure, goals can still play a secondary supporting role. And if you have a solid routine established with goals, that is fantastic. However, if you're looking to make the most, to take that next step in either your personal or professional life or both, the clear personal vision is the powerful step forward, with or without specific goals in place. In fact, I would suggest that if the vision is crystal clear, the goals will essentially achieve themselves. If this is your first time joining us, I'm Dr. Brad Cooper of Catalyst Coaching. In short, it's my mission to filter out the very best insights from psychology, physiology, and occasionally philosophy, and share the practical elements you can integrate into your life and your coaching practice. My PhD work focused on performance psychology. I love digging into how to optimize fitness through the lifespan as an elite masters runner, 11-time Ironman, and winner of the Race Across America cycling race. And nothing brings a bigger smile on my face than seeing people take positive steps with their lives. So thank you for jumping on board the Catalyst train. By the way, if you have any questions about pursuing your certification as a health and wellness coach, Catalyst Coaching might be worth a look. We were named the nation's top certification by Fortune magazine and the most customizable by Forbes magazine. All the details for our upcoming cohort at catalystcoachinginstitute.com, or reach out anytime. We're happy to set up a time to chat. Results at catalystcoachinginstitute.com, and we can discuss how coaching might fit into your own personal vision. And now, back to the topic at hand. Let's take a step back and get some broader perspective. Hamlet's to be or not to be is indeed the question. Who am I? Who am I becoming? Am I fully living? Or am I simply busying myself checking boxes? Our answer to the ultimate question, will I courageously choose to be, must be driven intrinsically. We can neither force it upon others, nor find it by following the shoulds imposed by those around us. And yet, seemingly around every corner, especially as New Year's approaches, we've settled on a completely different question, asking, to do or not to do. In the process, we focus on goals, resolutions, and that long list of shoulds rather than the intentional act of living the courageously creative life. It's no wonder those resolutions fall apart within weeks. Goals are often dressed up in a list of the aforementioned shoulds. What if this year we set aside the goals and resolutions, which are the what, and instead leaned into creating a clear personal vision, the who? Okay, great. But where do we start? We're so conditioned around goals and resolutions. A vision? Sounds complicated. Don't worry. I'm going to walk you through the steps, and it is relatively simple. You will need to invest some time, especially around the reflection piece. It involves going beneath that goal-setting superficial approach. But doesn't anything of value? And I think you'll find it's well worth it. In doing so, we'll not only land on a practical version of our North Star, we'll also learn some interesting things about ourselves along the way. Paul Tillich, one of my all-time favorite authors, in a book titled The Courage to Be, clarifies what is at stake. He says the self, which has become a matter of calculation and management, has ceased to be a self. It has become a thing. You must participate. And by participating, you change it. Wow. Goals focus on the first. A clear vision creates the second. If you're feeling hesitant, please realize you've done this before. Maybe it was when you went house or apartment shopping, as you considered a vacation destination, or planned some big event like a wedding. You create a clear vision in your head of what could be. When you do this with our broader lives, with your broader life, rather than a singular event or pursuit, the value is escalated exponentially. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Now, to keep it simple, we're going to follow these 4 steps with a couple of subcategories. First step is reflect, collect, and digest. Within this, you're going to invest time in reflecting on your life, where you want to be, where you want to go, who you want to become over the coming year. And you're going to tune into and capture in some format the sparks and the glimpses that pop up when you're going through this. The second step is to identify and play. This is where you're going to note the patterns that come through that time of reflection. And you're going to jot down or maybe sketch some things out. And do it in a manner that fits you. I'm going to talk through some ways that I've done this in the past, but this is you. You're not doing this for someone else. So do it in a manner that fits you. Third step is simmer, tweak, rinse, and repeat. You're going to let it sit. Once you get some basics down, you're just going to let it sit. Make some adjustments, and then rinse and repeat until you feel like it's ready. And then finally, you're going to live out the vision. So let's dig into that 4-step process a little bit more. Author David Brooks penned the words, "For many, the big choices in life aren't really choices. They're quicksand. You just sink into the place you happen to be standing." I think we all know the feeling of living out those words. We move through each day, allowing that quicksand to draw us into the days, the weeks, the months, and eventually the years as they pass by. Dreams fade out of sight. Regrets accumulate, and eventually we feel stuck. Creating a clear personal vision lifts us out of the muck, creates a participatory, personalized path toward a future aligned with us, with our unique self. So let's jump into these 4 steps. All right, the first one is reflect, collect, and digest. This phase of the process sets the stage for all the others. Now, please remember, this is you. This is your process. I'm not going to check up on you. Nobody is. There's no right way to go about this except for the need to create space. Give yourself some space to allow this to happen. Suzanne and I, over the last decade or so, have scheduled some time away from work and especially the internet for this very purpose. We discuss personal things, our marriage, family, kids, and our business. And while this time away for a couple of days from all the connections has become a regular, valuable rhythm in our lives, that reflection, it can take place anywhere. Maybe for you, it's a hike. Maybe it's a park bench. Maybe it's out on a paddleboard, or any place that allows you to create the space to reflect deeply on who you are and who you are becoming. The becoming element engages our recognition of the heart sparks, the glimpse, or the precious moments when we find ourselves saying, this. You know, those powerful moments when you're sitting there at a concert or time with a certain person or watching a sunrise or something, some powerful moment that just fills your heart to overflowing. Those are the glimpses. Those are the sparks that we want to tune into. Purposeful time of reflection momentarily moves us outside that ongoing pressure, those constant time fillers, those distractions, social media, TV, and the background noise that creates the soundtrack of our far too busy lives. Noticing and then collecting these into, maybe it's a journal, maybe it's a notepad, maybe it's a digital recorder, whatever works for you. That creates the palette of colors from which our vision will then come to life. Now, please, this is the most important phase. Avoid the temptation to rush through it. Give yourself time. Give yourself space. Push back any deadlines you've set for having this thing ready. Because as you allow those thoughts, those words, those visual representations come together, it's really not just going to come together, it's going to come to life for you. So give this part as much space as you feel like you need. By the way, if you're struggling with this, if you're listening to me and you're saying, yeah, I like this concept, but I really don't know where to start. Well, let me give you a little tool that you can use it's basically a simplified way of scanning the key areas of our lives. And again, we're not going for goals here. We're using this as a springboard, if you will, to create or recognize those sparks, those glimpses that I talked about. These 5 areas can create a valuable prompt, maybe get some potential initial thoughts for reflection, and then you can build on that. So the 5 areas, we call them the F5. It's faith, family and friends, fuel and fitness, field of play, and finances. Now, those 5 areas cover most of the key areas of our lives. You can make an argument about a couple of other things that could be integrated in there. But again, it's faith, friends and family, fuel and fitness, field of play, and finances. All of those, I think, except one, are pretty self-explanatory. The one that you might say, wait, what now? Is the field of play. The field of play references our work and our hobbies. Those are the fields on which we've chosen to step. And it's a reminder that, yes, with a few exceptions, usually temporary exceptions, we choose to walk onto that field, and we can choose with proper planning, especially in the case of our work, to step off of that field and onto a new one. So if you're struggling with, I don't even know where to start, maybe that's a good spot. Jot those 5 things down: faith, friends and family, fuel and fitness, field of play, and finances. And maybe just give some thoughts about what are the key areas that I kind of like to see myself shifting who I am in one or more of those. Once that's done, then we move to the second phase. And that's identifying patterns and creating some sort of a rough visual. So at this point, you've got a list of words, maybe phrases, maybe song lyrics, verses, sketches, stick figures, doesn't matter. As you look at those, what patterns emerge? Which ones initially resonated? You jotted a couple things down, but the more you've thought about it, they've kind of faded away. As your heart has kind of gone, ooh, yeah, that one there, this. So maybe you land on a single theme, or maybe there's a range of concepts that support one another. Maybe it's a phrase, or maybe you have some fun creating a picture that represents your, and again, we're talking just rough draft here, your vision. I've got some examples we put in a video from previous years. I've been doing this for about 12 years now, and we'll include a link to that in the description if you want to pull that up for some examples. So you're identifying and you're creating that rough visual. Now we let it simmer. That's where the flavor comes out. So with your notes, your sketch, your scribbles kind of coming to life on paper, and maybe you've created something with PowerPoint or Canva or maybe some AI tools that allow you to start putting some of these words, these phrases into something that, again, you're not putting this together for an art show. You're putting it together for you. But it is kind of fun to put that into a visual that you go, yeah, I like looking at the thing. That's a good reminder of this person that I'm growing into, this person I'm becoming. Now, once you have your rough draft of whatever this picture or phrase or representation is, print it out. Set on your desk or someplace that you're going to look at it regularly, and just let it simmer. Glance it over for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, and you're going to notice some things happening. You're going to notice, yeah, I think that one not so important. I think I want to add this in. I'll give you a quick example from last year. I had my pretty much there. I generally start this in mid-November, and I like to have it completely done for the kickoff of January 1st. So I was pretty close. It was kind of mid-December, and I kept looking at it. I'd left the top left corner of this visual open because there's always some last-minute thing that I'm like, ooh, yeah, I want to add that in. Well, it was interesting because this last year, what I realized was not adding something in was the answer. I'm not done a good job of creating margin in my life. And I realized that's the element of this year's vision. I'm recording this in late 2024. So this 2024 vision, let's build that in. So I didn't add anything at corner. I used that open corner as a reminder that margin, creating margin, allowing margin, making sure that I was being purposeful about building that into my life was a big part of the vision. So that's what you're looking for. You want to let it simmer. You want to look it over. You want to glance at it. You want to tweak. You want to scribble on it. You want to take something out, add something in, realize you don't want to add something in, all those kinds of things. That's where you're going with this phase. And remember, I said this before, but I'm just going to say it again. It's just for you. You may choose to share it with others. I always share it with Susanna, oftentimes a couple other folks. But the goal we have here is creating something that resonates with you. It's your vision. It's what you're going to be using as your trigger, your prompt, your North Star, if you will, as you move forward. And again, do it in a way that works for you. If you looked at my very first one, and I think we have an example in that video that I'll link in the description, it was simply a phrase. Twice a year, every year for 22 years, I think, drove from Colorado to Little Rock, Arkansas to see family at Christmas time and over the summer. And one year we had a tablet, like a little computer tablet in the car, and Danielle was playing with the art piece of it. And I said, hey, could you just like sketch out this phrase for me? And I don't have it in front of me, but I'm trying to think. It was something like soak in this moment, optimize the next. So this idea of I was the person I was becoming in that case, and I'm still working on it, but it was a wonderful trigger, wonderful prompt to remind me that yes, it's valuable to be thinking about the future, optimizing the future. Oh, I remember the exact phrase now. Treasure this moment, optimize the next. So I didn't have a big visual. I didn't have, sunsets in the picture or fires or all these things that I've since built into some of the visuals over the years. It was simply Danielle taking a tablet and writing that phrase in a creative way, treasure this moment, optimize the next. And that played a powerful role as I moved through that following year. So maybe you start with a phrase. Maybe you don't want to go with the visual. Over time, I've, again, used Canva or PowerPoint and now AI a little bit to create something that's kind of fun that I can put on my phone and have sitting at my desk to look at and remind me. But this is for you. So create the version that resonates with you, that will help draw you forward as you do this. And then the last step is simply live it out. And I say simply, that's the hard part, right? But as fun as it is to see that unique personal vision come into focus and see it on paper, and I have a little frame that I got that I just insert the new one over the top of the old one each year that sits just over my computer screen. And it's fun to see that, but I want to emphasize the biggest value of this process is not having the picture. It's the growth that occurs as you go through this. Almost no one, and that is not an exaggeration, almost no one takes the time to deeply reflect on who they are and who they're becoming. If you go through this process, regardless of what your outcome, being this picture, or this visual, or this phrase, ends up being, you will garner incredible value. It is the process, not the outcome, that brings the greatest value. And then once it's done, while others are discussing the resolutions around New Year's or maybe their goals the remainder of the year, you can smile, picture that vision, and know that any potential goals are organically coming to fruition in the wave of your clear, personal vision. In doing this, you've discovered the courage not simply to do goals, but to truly be, living out that personal vision. Thanks for joining us for this special episode of the Coaching Lab podcast. Take your time with this one. You're going to find it is well worth the investment in yourself to do so. And it's going to influence those around you. In the meantime, if you're considering pursuing your MBHWC approved coach certification, our next cohort kicks off soon. We'd love to have you join us. All the details at catalystcoachinginstitute.com or reach out anytime. Results at catalystcoachinginstitute.com. And now it's time to be a catalyst, living out your clear, personal vision. This is Dr. Brad Cooper of Catalyst Coaching. I will speak with you soon on another episode of the Coaching Lab podcast, or maybe over on the YouTube coaching channel.